Mind accepting it. There we go. So officially, good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to see everybody online. Welcome to our December webinar. I actually can't believe that the time has flown. I remember, I see Jonathan's online. Jonathan, I can't remember if you remember last year, no, the year before last, round about this time, I asked you if you'd be keen on doing a webinar for us, and you said, ask me in the new year, and I did. January, the beginning of this year, and then you said to me, come to me towards the end of the year, and can you
property management Kim speaking?
We're literally sitting at exactly the same time again. It's absolutely insane. So Jonathan, when are you going to be doing a webinar with us? I'm putting you on the
spot. I don't know. What have I got to say?
You have got to say how you've managed to stay in property management, but no longer as the managing director of a portfolio management business or a property management business. I think that's very interesting. I know that all of us as portfolio managers, you know, we always joke about how we fell into it and how we hate it and how we wish to get out of it and all those fun things, but we tend to stick around for quite a while, and some of us go back again as well. So it's interesting to see that you still stay in the property management space, just a different area of it. So ladies and gents, on that note, I'd like to welcome every single one of you, and welcome especially my team today. We're all going to be having a little bit of something to say today. And our topic, Kyle, are you going to introduce our topic for us?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind doing that. Our topic today is the top 10 tasks you should pledge to complete in 2023.
Fantastic. So we can get going on that topic. This is just a bit of like a New Year's resolution type thing in December, and just something a little bit less formal today. And you are more than welcome to interrupt and add your ideas and any comments that you would like to make. Who's first up on our side?
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle again. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to do some of the general marketing announcements. So good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. And thanks so much for tuning in to see our last webinar of the year. This webinar is going to be recorded, as you can see, and it's going to be published on our website and YouTube. So please remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please do sign up to our newsletter. This way you can keep in touch with TVDM Consultants team, as well as watch the latest Nicole's Neighborly advice. I'll post all the relevant links in the chat. And then we'd also just like to say a special thank you to everyone that took part in the Black Friday competition. We really enjoyed reading the comments. Well, thanks, and I'll post all the links in the chat.
Thanks, Carl.
And I think, Carl, you're number 10 on our countdown list.
Yeah. Okay, so tolerance, that's the first topic. When looking at people's tolerance levels for each other at the beginning of the year compared to now, there's definitely a noticeable difference in terms of people not being very tolerant towards their neighbors. So I feel like it would make a good goal for the entire year next year to be more friendly and tolerant towards everyone in the industry, whether it's your trustees, your managing agents, your attorneys, or even your neighbors. People often go through difficult times, and having a neighbor who is friendly goes a long way when someone is having a bad day, even if it is just something as simple as a smile or a friendly greeting. If you're putting into practice being tolerant and treating each other with respect, it may solve or even prevent issues within your scheme without being escalated to a situation that can become more severe. With the upcoming festive season and the new year fast approaching, please be mindful that your schemes are going to be busier with friends and family visiting. If you are the one having friends and family over, then please be mindful over your neighbors, as it's a two-way street. I also recently co-authored a blog with Tashreeq, where we listed the top 5 neighbors we wouldn't want to live next door to. In this article, we list 5 issues that would really test the patience of anyone. So please give it a read and see what we have to say about it. I'll also add the link for this as well in the chat function. If everyone just respects each other and treats your neighbor the way that you would want to be treated, then we wouldn't have so many issues escalating. Cool, that's our topic. I'll post all the links in the chat now.
I see Klaus being naughty in the chat function. Tony, are you reading there? That one's aimed at you.
Clive has it out for Tony this morning.
some friendly camaraderie there. So ladies and gents, that's actually a really important topic. And Carl, I see that you actually jumped the gun there, but I'm glad that you did end up starting with that topic specifically. Nicole, Null and I actually had a chat about it yesterday. There was an incident that took place in Cape Town over the weekend where unfortunately there were some racist remarks made at a social event, and a youngster stepped in and made quite a strong stand for his friend. And that led Nicole, Null and I to start talking about the younger generation in community schemes. And, all of the guys that work with us, Nicole, Tavares and I, excluding, unfortunately, is part of this younger generation. And they all live, except Carl, in a community scheme. And we were talking about how certain things that really are an issue for us and a lot of the clients that we work with don't seem to really faze the younger generation. It's not really an issue for them. A lot of them don't have cars, so parking's not a problem. A lot of them Uber, so it's not an issue. A lot of them don't mind parking their car on the streets or sharing a parking bay or whatever it might be. A lot of them don't mind overcrowding per se because it's all that they can afford, or they don't mind a little bit too loud music in a community scheme. And as the residents and occupation in the scheme changes, so the things that are important to us changes, and things that we are tolerant about changes as well. So I think we can take a page out of the book of the younger generation to be a little bit more tolerant with people. I know it's incredibly difficult to talk about it during this time of year where the stress is very, very high and the smallest little thing sets us off. But in a community scheme, we need to remember that the person next door to us is going through probably exactly the same thing, if not worse than we are. And a little bit of patience and tolerance most certainly will go a long way. Having a look at my list, Nicole, I see you're next with the updating of rules.
Yeah, so morning everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I just thought if you are looking for something to do in your scheme this time of year, we've had a lot of people coming to us like now, late November, December, looking to change their rules, get the ball rolling over the festive season, giving owners some time to read through some new rules over the festive season while they might have some time. I know it might not be the number one thing that you would like to do, but touching on Zelinda's point, a lot of community schemes are changing with new diverse people moving in every day, with new problems presenting themselves that might not really have been an issue under your old rules. I do see a lot of schemes still operating with rules from the 1990s, 1980s. Those definitely need to be updated, and provision for updated circumstances in your scheme definitely needs to be catered for. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, and the next one we've got is myself reviewing insurance policies. So on that note, I see Mike Addison is literally just joining us. I want to allow him an opportunity for his audio to connect, and I never miss an opportunity to put Mike on the spot. But while we have it, I do know Yaku, you're online. Give us some inputs in what you've probably been dealing with the last couple of days with regards to insurance.
Morning, Zelinda, everybody else.
Hi there.
I must say it's been a little bit rough at the immediate moment. We've had quite a severe storm on Monday, as everybody knows. But being the hands of the contractors, that's the guys that ultimately need to put the tacky to the toe. And yes, and obviously insurers having to do their thing in the background.
Yeah, lots of hard work, eh? And then Mike, you were just coming in as my topic was starting, and my topic is dealing with the review of the insurance policy, one of the top 10 things to think about getting done towards the end of this year and the beginning of next. Maybe you want to give us some comments as to the importance of ensuring that you're on top of understanding and knowing what your scheme needs when it comes to insurance review time.
We're going to be talking about that at 11 o'clock on WIST for those of you okay to
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, so I pretty much got my notes here on that subject. Yeah, look, renewal time is when it all happens. So I wouldn't say it's something that you can say, oh, we'll do for the new year per se, but you know, when your policy comes up for renewal, there's a lot of important things that one should do. Jaco will agree with me. Your written advice from your broker is critical. And there's two messages really that I feel very strongly about, and I know Jaco does as well. Working with a broker that specializes means that when your policy renews, you can get written advice and with comparative quotes and all of that. And that written advice is what's critical. And then the second thing is, make sure that your valuations are done and that your schedules of replacement values are not just photocopies of your policy. People rush around and AGM quickly next week, go to the policy, take a photocopy of what's in there. Wrong. You must actually prepare a schedule of replacement values properly. I'll just leave you with those two.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Nicole.
Sorry, finish thanking Mike and then I'll give my 2 cents.
No, go for it.
My first thing to do in January, Rory actually gets irritated with me because January 1st rolls around and January 2nd, I'm like, discovery age test, discovery vitality points we need to do, and look at all our values of our all risk items. So from a personal aspect, it's like the cell phones, the computers, things like that. Has their amounts changed? The car insurance, and I like to get on the ball. So from 30 January already, I'm getting that little added discount because everything's depreciated a little bit.
Nicole, you can come and do it by me as well. I'm sure I'm about 10 years behind.
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know.
So ladies and gents, the importance of ensuring that all of your documentation is in place. I mean, we picked on the item of insurance simply because, it's a nice thing to do at the beginning of the year. And very often we're dealing with your annual general meetings around about this time, and insurance is part of that. But it's in regard to any governance documents. Nicole now spoke about rules. You can have a look at to make sure that you've got the right sectional plans or the updated registered sectional plans on hand, that everything that needs to be lodged with the community scheme ombuds service has been lodged. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to happen. I mean, looking around me on my desk, I've got mountains and mountains of paperwork that I've been threatening to do as soon as the holiday rolls around. And that's, it's admin, and it's what body corporates have to do as well. I remember this time of year being a managing agent, I was also getting stuck into my filing and making sure that that was all up to date. So that's something to take into consideration as well. As a trustee, you most certainly don't want to wait until the last possible moment to start looking at if you need to change insurers, if you're happy with your policy, if you've got any questions on it, and even worse, find yourself in a situation where you potentially can't get insurance cover. So you do want to protect yourself in that regard. You do want to engage with your broker. And this is a discussion that some of my colleagues and I have had over the years. And I was actually quite fortunate in my personal capacity to deal with it last week in actual event. I had our insurance broker contact me directly. In this particular case, it's not Mike. And they spoke to me directly. And it was so nice to engage and actually speak to the broker directly. And very often we only deal with insurance items through our managing agents. And sometimes it's a case of broken telephone. Other times it's simply emails forwarded. Sometimes it is nice to pick up the phone and talk to the broker directly. I know that Mike is quite keen on that as well and always makes himself available. Jaco, I think you are as well, to your clients directly, attending meetings. So it is important to know that you do have that resource on hand and you can take the advice there. I see.
Also, you can see, Zelinda, you don't deal with our company insurance. I do, because our broker has made contact, set up a Zoom with us and sent me the new policy through and everything on the ball. I didn't even know it was coming up for renewal, and I got hey, let's just double check this quickly before we close up for the year. So our broker has definitely reached out already.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. And the next topic is back to Nicole now, and it's reviewing the maintenance, repair and replacement plan.
Cool. So obviously, as the year is coming to an end, we know that the maintenance plan is obviously every 10-year cycle, but at the end of every year, we have to extend that by another year. So always reviewing your maintenance, repair and replacement plan at the end of every year just gives you a good indication as to what's coming up in the new year. See if you have enough of the budget.
Just tap on the home button to
See if you have enough of the budget for it and you can plan accordingly. I also think it's worth reviewing just because I know that this time of year, especially in Cape Town, a lot of swallows tend to return back to South Africa and generally get a bit upset when there's been a lack of maintenance. So it's always good to kind of tell them, don't worry, we've had a look at the plan. We're going to be tackling these projects in the new year. Don't worry about it. Everything is sorted. Yeah.
Thank you. And now we have Nicole T. You're going to talk to us about poppy and paya.
So I don't know what I did to deserve a talking spot today. As you all know, I like to chirp in here and there. I don't normally like to give any advice or have the spotlight on me. But yeah, so poppy paya, the legislation's been around for a while. We all heard it. We all know about it. I was thinking this morning, I think 7 years ago, Zelinda and I did our first poppy paya manual task or take in. So that was 7 years ago. We know about it. I'm not going to go into the semantics of what it is. It should be done. Most information officers should be registered already. The portal is up and running. I don't know if you've been on it yet. Tashrika and myself have worked on it personally. It's very easy to use once you know what to do and where to go. You can put in my name, you can put in TVDM Consultants, and it will take you directly to who the information officer is on there. So the portal, it did take long to get up and running, but it is really worth working on. The main thing to remember here is if your information officer has changed, you need to re-register your new information officer. The person could have left, in which case they are still the information officer, according to the information regulator or according to the board. They are still liable. They can't just turn around and go, oh, I left the scheme, that should have been updated. You need to update that. Tashrika and I have had a little bit of problems in that area on the portal. We're finding that you sort of have to re-register the scheme as a whole, as opposed to just clicking into your scheme's profile and then just editing the name. But hopefully we'll iron that out, or they'll iron that out soon. Another topic that I do want to touch is the CSOS just released a practice directive on the 10th of November, so almost a month ago. And you know, there was some fluff in there. They confirmed that managing agents can be the information officer, which we knew about. They confirmed that, you know, people are in sectional title. There was a big debate about what information can I access. And there was one or two miss points that was put out there into the industry saying that as an owner, you're not entitled to trustees' information and things like that because of poppy. But CSOS has corrected that now. And in the directive, they have said that you are entitled to the information that you are entitled to under our relevant acts. So the STSMA, things like that, that says you can ask for this information, you are entitled to get. The big thing that came out, a bit strange for CSOS to be putting things like this in a practice directive, but nonetheless, within 6 months of the directive coming out, so it came out in November, so around May, each body corporate must have an AGM or an SGM where they are going to table this new poppy manual. If you look at the poppy legislation, they don't talk about a manual. They only talk about a set work, a framework, or something like that. Framework, yeah. They don't talk about a manual. We have said, put it in a manual because it makes the most sense. It's in the same format as the PIA manual, and it sets out what your framework would set out anyways. So that's the first thing. Then it needs to now be done at a meeting. So you need to take this manual to your SGM, to the members, and say, this is our manual. This is what it consists of. This is who our information officer is. And then you also need to say, these are the conditions. This is how you access the information. This is the process you need to follow. And this is what you are allowed to do with the information. So how you're allowed to distribute it. So you can't take the owner's list. We all know you can't take the owner's list and sell it to MTN, for example. You've got to, so the manual will set out how you're going to access it and how you can use it. They're wanting every scheme to have done this within the next 6 months. So we've had a discussion, Zelinda and I discussed it, Nicole and I discussed it. We of the opinion, if you haven't got your manuals in place, you're in contravention of the poppy and PIA legislation. So CSOS aside, get that done as soon as possible. You're going to have to table it at a meeting in terms of this new practice directive from the CSOS. If you've already got your manuals in place, you've registered your information officers, nothing's really changed, table it at your next meeting. Don't rush to have a meeting scheduled or anything like that. Just have your paperwork, and at the end of your next AGM or your next SGM, you can just say, guys, let's just discuss this, let's run through it. And on that, in order to adopt it, we also just saying an ordinary resolution is fine. The CSOS doesn't set out what resolution they're wanting, so just get it done when you have a time to do it. And if you need any assistance, most of you do know we have an array of products with regards to Poppy Empire. You can email Carl to get our service offerings in that regard, and we're always just an email away.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nicole. Nicole, you look so beautiful in the spotlight. So we're going to be sure to include you a heck of a lot more. Nicole, there's a comment for you on the chat function. The portal link address, please. I know that.
Sure, I will post it for you shortly.
I know you know that off by heart. I saw Clive looked very, very worried there when you started talking about this SGM and AGM having to be held. Clive, do you feel a little bit more at ease now than what you originally looked like?
Well, thanks for the opportunities, Linda. My question here would be that I would like to sort of question that CSOS, who is a regulator and is not a creator of legislation. I'm just a bit concerned that to come up with 6 months, a bit draconian. I'm not convinced personally that they actually have the power to just lay down the law, so to speak. So I don't know how my colleagues feel, but you know, it's I think it's very burdensome. I don't have a problem with the principle at all. I just am questioning whether CSOS are batting above their pay grade on this. Maybe it is for others to put down legislation and for them to regulate the same, but
yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me express that, and thanks for looking at my body language. That's why I like having cameras on, and that's the one thing I don't like about Zooms, is that you can't see who you're talking to sometimes.
Exactly. So we're going to be doing quite a lot more physical events next year, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all physically all across the country. So that's pretty exciting. Shirley, I see that you've got your pen ready. We'll
yes,
jump
please.
in.
I want to reply to Clive's thing. This CSOS, they don't do anything right. So they'll tell you what you need to do, and they don't do it. It is phenomenal how they manage to do that every time, and they don't get embarrassed.
So, Clive, I also want to respond to your comment. I actually spoke. So we actually had a few of our managing agent clients come to us with that exact problem. They've said, oh, we've already had our Poppy Pie manuals approved by trustee approval, like as per the SCSMA. Does this mean we now have to go to a meeting and it has to be approved by the members? Like, what do we do now? Because I know a lot of managing agencies, they kind of have a standard Poppy Pie manual, because I mean, they are quite straightforward and it's the same for every scheme, and they kind of did it all at once. So now they've got like 250 schemes that already have done this, and now they think, oh, now we have to call another special general meeting. But I spoke to our Poppy Pie consultant, and we actually discussed this, and I'm in 100% agreement with Shirley as well, because we both agreed that the purpose of CSOS practice directives is to provide interpretation of the law that already exists, that affect community schemes. It's not to create law. It's not to place further restrictions on people. That's, in our opinion, and if we're doing strict interpretation of the CSOS Act, is not their mandate. They're actually not allowed to do that. And I actually had a further conversation with one of our clients yesterday, who this isn't about the Poppy Pie, but it's about slaughtering, because I mean, as we all know, the only reason we have to have slaughtering in conduct rules is because of a practice directive. But I had a client who actually physically took CSOS on directly, because it also just says we recommend, it's recommended that you do this, it's recommended that you do that. But then if you don't do it, they don't say, oh, you have to put this in. So it got to a point where he was like, tell me the law that forces me to put in a slaughtering law, tell me the provision. And then they just stopped replying to his emails. So, you know, I know, Shirley, it's ridiculous. He was contacting a pretty big person that we all contact quite frequently, and then they just stopped replying to his emails. And now he even phoned them and they had a discussion. But then as soon as he started demanding proof, they were like, okay, I guess we'll just blacklist you. So I know it's so frustrating. And the only thing that we can really do is just keep fighting them and telling them like, this is wrong, like this is not what you're supposed to do. But I don't know about Zelinda, but I think I'm also in the situation where they've started replying to my emails. So maybe it's just that time of year. Maybe it's that time of year. Maybe with next year, after they've had a little break, they'll come back with fresh energy. Yeah,
and
more
tolerance.
More tolerance. Here we go.
Tolerance.
I just want to add there, interestingly enough, in this practice directive, which I'll ask Carl to post under our recording when he adds it to the webinar, to the website, they do say that this practice directive supersedes the provisions in the CSOS Act, the STSMA, the POPI Act, and any other piece of legislation. So that I found very, 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 very interesting.
No, I don't think it does though.
Yeah, but that's what it says. But so on the other hand, so we've all pretty much in the same opinion, but on the other hand, the legislation is there. The POPI legislation is there, the PIA legislation is there. It is saying we need to do it. So whether the CSOS is within their rights to do this or not, your schemes need to be compliant anyways. So just make sure that you follow the rules, make sure you've got your manuals up and running, and yeah, get it done on time. It's required, whether it's from the CSOS or from the PIA legislation themselves. I see there's a few hands up there, Zelinda.
Yeah, Tony, over to you. Just unmute yourself. There we go.
Right. You know, one talks about all these practice directives, and this is the first time I'm hearing about this POPI PIA one, because when you go to CSO's website, none of them, well, there's only about 5 or 6 directives that are on their website, and yet they expect society at large to be aware of all the directives which they are publishing, and we're not. So this is news to me about POPI PIA. And when you look at their website, how do they expect for people to adhere to it, and when they're not performing themselves?
Yeah, true. Sandra, you've got your hand raised.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Just a quick question from my side. In terms of the president that has some sort of new legislation on his desk, something that he's signing or is going to sign, what does that entail? How can I say? What does that entail, and what does it mean for us? Thank you.
New legislation on his desk. I know when we had a meeting with, where we were invited to a meet and greet with the chief ombud. Surely, when was it? Last week Friday. Time flies, so I think it was last week Friday. They did speak about amendments that had been proposed. So it must come for public participation still. That's the only ones that I'm aware of, and that would be the amendments to the STSMA and the CSOS Act. But I'm not too sure how far in the process it is. I think that it was supposed to be further than what it currently is. According to the DA Shadow Minister that you all know we've been working with, there isn't anything on the parliamentary schedule for the next 2 years. So I'm not too sure what we're going to see and when we're going to see it. Does that answer your question, roundabouts?
Sandra, I also know that one of the specific things that they will be looking at in the amendment of the CSOS Act is Section 57, which is the right to appeal. Because they, at the NAMA conference, the CSOS panel spoke about how they noticed that there was a shortfall in the CSOS Act legislation for internal review procedures. So I know that they are introducing at some stage an internal review committee, hopefully next year sometime, to kind of bridge the gap for the shortcoming. Because if you had to appeal a CSOS order, as we all know, you have to go to high court, but it's also only for an area in law. So that double limits the right to appeal. So they noticed that there was a shortfall, and they said that this is one of the things that will be specifically addressed. I'm not sure about the other things, but I'm quite excited for that one.
Kyle, just jumping off Tony's suggestion, I think in our newsletters, let's start adding in those practice directives as we get them. That because they are not on the website, I have just gone to have a look now. They're not up on the CSOS website. So as we get them, just load them for the next newsletter so that we can also get them out as far and wide as possible, please.
Perfect. Shirley, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, the people that are registered in my database got that practice directive. I sent it out to everybody. So you see, you should be registering with me because I'm ahead of the pack.
Pop your email address in the chat function for anybody that doesn't know.
I will. And then the second thing is there is this change that is sitting in front of the Parliament at the moment about the amendments to the Sexual Title Act 95 of 1986, which is the one we don't use that often. It has all gone through up to the president, but with the president issue and his other 5 acts that he has to sign in, who knows when it's going to happen. But everybody that's bought a book from me will get all the amendments in a format that you can actually stick it in, because I always do that. So that is what's going to change, but not much. We need it on the STSMA.
Perfect. All right. Well, Nicole, you definitely chose the hot topic for the day. That's now I'm going to have to talk to you about boring annual general meetings. Ugh, who wants to listen to that? So the only thing that I want to say about annual general meetings is that, yes, you should be having one. And yes, it should be taking place 4 months after, well, within 4 months after the financial year end. And it is vitally important, not only, to change trustees, but to approve the levy increases, noting that trustees can only increase a levy up to 10% in a sectional title scheme. Homeowners associations sometimes function differently. Sometimes they say an AGM must be held every 15 months. I know the Companies Act has a whole bunch of things to say as well when it comes to HAAs, but we very often talk more about sectional title. Now, the thing that I have been seeing more and more is a lot of schemes either jumping on the opportunity of having a physical meeting and not allowing for remote attendance. Alternatively, schemes having remote attendance meetings and not allowing for physical participation. Now, interestingly, if a physical meeting is held in a sectional title scheme, there is an obligation to make available the ability to have remote attendance. And whoever attends remotely must be able to participate. The chairman must, with reasonable certainty, be able to ascertain the identity, and there must be a two-way communication. And we have been going to quite a lot of meetings towards the end of the year, and we've been seeing that people have been struggling to have hybrid meetings. We've seen specifically, and when people have virtual meetings, as Clive mentioned, cameras are off, audio doesn't work, or audio is muted. Sometimes you have a concern that you don't have a quorum because there's no participation, or there's so much flurry of activity happening in the body of the meeting that you don't know who's coming and going and who is actually behind the camera that is off, or even if the camera's on, who that person is, because we don't know everybody in the scheme. So it is not without its challenges, and we always recommend that you make use of the online platforms that are available. And our colleagues from We Connect You and BCM Track and Meeting Pal are always there to be able to assist you in that regard. I received an interesting question the other day where a body corporate has been getting into the routine of having a virtual meeting, and an owner said, is there something that we can do to force the body corporate to have a physical meeting? Interestingly, there isn't. It's in the trustees' discretion to have a meeting where and how they choose, and the only time an owner can make a request is for virtual attendance and not necessarily physical attendance. We have been noting with load shedding and with data issues and with cellular reception, it sometimes is difficult for people to participate, but at the end of the day, it is in the trustees' discretion. And of course, if a meeting is called by the members, it is in the discretion of the members that are calling the meeting. The one thing, unfortunately, we are not being able to find excuses for anymore is not having an annual general meeting. We know during the height of COVID, the CSOS issued one of those elusive practice directives to say that there wouldn't be any repercussions for not having a meeting within time, but that practice directive doesn't apply anymore. The regulations have long since changed with regards to meeting attendance, and meetings very much are required to be held. So if you are in a scheme that has not yet had their annual general meeting, we suggest that you jump onto that. And also when you're planning meetings, take into consideration that you need to budget, for lack of a better word, to be able to come back 1 week later, same date, same time, same place, which is very often difficult. And we've also been getting quite a few questions regarding load shedding. So there's going to be load shedding tonight. It's going to affect our quorum. What do? Do we change the meeting before it happens? Do we cancel the meeting? If you cancel the meeting, you need to send out fresh notice. If you're going to go ahead with the meeting and you don't have your quorum, you have to wait for 30 minutes and you have to adjourn to exactly 1 week later. And this is sectional title. HOA is dependent on the Constitution and the Memorandum of Incorporation. So I know to the guys that join us religiously on our webinars, firstly, thank you for your support. And secondly, we know that you don't struggle with these types of issues, but this is for the message to get out there to the guys that might be catching it on the recording. You must have your annual general meetings. There isn't an excuse to not have it anymore. So further to my boring topic, we're now going to head back to CSOS, which seems to be
I just want to add, Zelinda, just touch on that question that we got the other day about the adjourned meeting taking place and then load shedding coming to play at the adjourned meeting. So what would actually come, what would you need to do there?
Yeah, so again, you know, an adjourned meeting after 30 minutes, if you've had to wait the second 30 minutes at the adjourned meeting, whoever is there, provided that it's at least two actual people and not two proxies, obviously, that the meeting can proceed. So if load shedding does affect it rather in that regard, and there isn't sufficient people, as long as you have two, that should be fine. If you don't have it all, I think we dealt with a matter, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, where it was only the managing agent that attended the meeting, not even one of the trustees attended. And in my experience at the adjourned meeting, there's normally less people than were there the first time around. I don't know if that's other people's experiences as well. So yeah, there's a whole lot of considerations to take place. Now, I have to say that I'm incredibly proud of my team. They've all jumped onto this topic quite nicely, and they have their pros and cons when it comes to the CSOS. Perhaps I can hand over my chief troublemaker title to Nicole Nell, because she's most certainly going to pick up that baton and run with it when she deals with her masters next year, and she focuses on all the things that the CSOS should be doing and the things that they shouldn't be doing. But back onto that topic, we're now going to talk about this very exciting CSOS portal. And I know Nicole Nell has had some engagement with the portal already. So Nicole, over to you to talk to us about that topic.
Yeah, so if you don't know already, you can no longer do your manual registrations of new schemes or submission of like your annual financial returns and your CSOS payments. And when you change your rules, you can't do that manually anymore. I think it's a blessing because I'm not sure about anybody else, but every time I submit something to CSOS, I get a different person, and it's like I'm working with a completely new company every time. So I'm really happy that it's one system that everyone will be using. Hopefully people will start talking to each other. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I've had some fun playing around with the system. I must be honest, there are some drawbacks I've noticed. I have brought them to CSOS's attention. I emailed Jolene myself and I let her know that there were some issues. She just forwarded the email to someone else. She didn't reply. So we'll see if they get that sorted. But what I do like is it is very quick and easy. Some of the drawbacks, I think, is that you can only register as an owner, a trustee, a managing agent, a developer, those kinds of people who have the direct link to the schemes. So unfortunately, at the moment, especially with the registrations of new schemes, if you don't already have a managing agent or your bank account information or the information of your first trustee committee, it is extremely difficult to register because I know, for example, when I would do manual registrations and you would have to complete the CS1 registration form, you didn't have to fill in all that information. It wasn't necessarily compulsory, but now the online registration system is kind of alluding to the fact that you have to have that information. Personally, I think that that's a bit of a drawback, because obviously people, I think it's a bit of a catch-22 because you need your CSOS certificate to get it established and to start selling units. But now they won't let you get the certificate until you have your first general meeting where your first trustees are elected, which isn't going to happen if you don't have the certificate. So it's like a nice little circle that's happening at the moment, but I have brought it to their attention. So hopefully they can iron out all of those issues. Some of the good things though is that they do promise that with it's called CSOS Connect. They do promise that with CSOS Connect, all of your submissions will be dealt with on a quicker turnaround time. If anybody has used it successfully and can attest to that, I would love to hear the stories. But usually if you are already a registered scheme and you submit something to CSOS, it's supposed to be FYI a 1 to 2 week turnaround time, and for new schemes it's only supposed to be 30 days. But with the CSOS Connect system, they have promised that will be expedited. So I am hopeful. I'm sure it's difficult for me because obviously for like someone like us as a third-party sectional title consultant that helps people register on CSOS and engages with CSOS a lot, as well as conveyances, they don't really have access to the system and to play around with it. So to its full extent. So I'm really hoping that it is successful for the people that it was built for, I suppose. But yeah, I'm just hoping that they do improve on it, because I know for a lot of, especially like our developer clients, they really rely on conveyances to do those things on their behalf. And there's currently just no provision made for it. But yeah, anyway.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Nicole. So let's, in Christmas spirit, refer back to Carl's original topic of tolerance and say that we will exercise tolerance towards the community schemes orbit services. Well, I must say, and CSOS, and Shirley, I think that you'll agree, we walked out quite positively from our session with them last week, Friday. I have to say that the chief ombud that we have in charge is a really incredible human being. I think that there is most certainly improvement. Actually, I know that there is improvement. I have been seeing it, and I'm very excited for what the future holds. That being said, as with any institution, it is up to us as members of the public to ensure that they are complying with their statutory obligations. And with people like we currently have in the industry, which includes every single one of you that's in attendance today and have been in our other webinars as well, that active participation is only going to lead to the positivity that our industry most certainly requires. At this point, I'm going to hand back over to Carl to talk to us about TVDM's free resources. Yes, you've heard it, ladies and gents, free. Prof Paddock always used to tell us that if it's free, I'll take 2. So Carl, I know that we do have more than 2 free resources. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So if you are one of the fortunate ones that is going to be on leave over the festive season, why not take this opportunity to start the new year off with immersing yourself in an abundance of free resources that us at TVDM Consultants, as well as many other of our colleagues in the industry, offer. Many of our colleagues also offer extensive training and learning portals. These resources are available on both our and our colleagues' website and YouTube channels. CSOS also have some very interesting resources on their channel, so please make sure to check them out as well. On our website, you'll be able to find our webinars, articles, and newsletters that are available to use or share however you would like to. Also, if you haven't seen yet, Stratafin, in collaboration with TVDM Consultants, has released the Trustee Training Portal. I'm going to add the link for that in the comments as well. This will be a great way to equip yourself with relevant information or upskill yourself with regard to this industry, whether it be to bridge the knowledge gap between any subjects that you may still be unsure of, brush up on certain areas of legislation. This will undoubtedly put you in a great position for the start of the new year. Cool.
Thank you so much. All right, so ladies and gents, there's so many people in the industry that offer so many fantastic free resources, and Carl, perhaps you can add a couple of more of them to the chat function. So, you know, you mentioned Stratafin, we've got the fantastic work that Trafalgar does, we've got a lot of work that NAMA provide as well. So many of
Mike's booklets.
Exactly, Mike Addison and all of his information as well. Andre, I'm not too sure if the thumbs up is meant to be a hands up, like as in a question, or just a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. I do see your question in the chat function, and I've just taken a read through it. And as soon as we're done, I'm definitely going to answer that one for you, most certainly. All right, and the next topic is something that I will end on. So not end the talk, but rather just my bits, and then I'm going to hand over to Nicole T to finish up, is getting to know your neighbors. So interestingly, in a community scheme, and we very often find it when it comes to the annual general meeting time, that people really don't know each other in a community scheme. You know, you recognize that face and you sort of know that person lives next door to you. But when we get issues with regards to, you know, noise, nuisance, behavior, the first thing we ask the person that comes to us, be it an owner, a tenant, or the trustees, have you engaged with the other party? Have you engaged with your neighbor that is playing loud music or whatever it might be? And very often that is not the case. We don't talk to each other in community schemes. Sometimes we say hello, sometimes we don't, sometimes we nod, sometimes we ignore each other. You know, it's all about getting to know your neighbors. And something that we've been working on, which Nicole is going to either reintroduce or introduce for the first time, if you don't know about it or haven't heard about it, is an opportunity to get to know those neighbors. And our colleague spoke about, you know, lending that cup of sugar or that cup of milk or whatever it might be. Now, we don't have to go as far as that when it comes to knowing our neighbors, but again, it is exercising tolerance. And if we get to know each other, we'll very soon realize that the person that we think is, you know, the absolute worst is in fact just another human being, just like us, experiencing exactly the same issues. So I do motivate you to, at your next annual general meeting or special general meeting, you know, meet the person next door to you, chat to the person next door to you. I don't know if anybody still experiences this, but I remember when I was younger in our church, the pastor always used to say, and it was always so awkward, turn around and say hello to somebody that you've not spoken to before. And it used to create my anxiety to go right through the roof of having to talk to somebody that I didn't know. But it was actually quite nice, you know, and then during the course, you'd sort of be like, oh, I know that person now, or it was just that need that you, or that push that you needed to get to talk to the person. And according to my mom, my gran was always the person on the street that would act like the crazy person and say hello to everybody, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea as well. But sometimes just saying hello to person, sometimes I can't speak, just like you, Carl. Sometimes just saying hello to somebody is exactly what they need. So get to know your neighbors in your scheme. And interestingly, it goes even further than the neighbors in your particular scheme, but the neighboring schemes as well. We had an opportunity in our body corporate not too long ago to actually have a meeting where we invited all the neighboring schemes. And it was quite nice to get to know some of the owners and trustees of the schemes around us, you know, that body corporate next door where the noise and the bright smiles always come from, or wherever it might be. So yeah, get to know your neighbors. Shirley says, organize a tea party for after the meeting, or maybe wine. Fantastic. That sounds like an idea, most certainly. All right, and now Nicole T, over to you. We're going to be chatting about our neighborhood and joining our neighborhood.
When you spoke about your church days, it took me back to my Catholic church days of shaking everybody's hand in front of you, behind you, next to you. Yes, so the number one thing for you to do, for your trustees to do, for your owners to do, for your neighbors to do, for everybody in this industry to do next year is going to be join our neighborhood. You would have seen on social media, Carl has done a good few posts about an exciting product that we are launching early next year. What is this product? It is our neighborhood, which is an online platform for everybody in this industry. Attorneys, trustees, owners, managing agents, portfolio managers, the CSOS, everybody can be a neighbor in our neighborhood. This online platform is going to consist of discussion forum spaces, private ask an expert spaces, which will be our trusted experts panel, free resources. We're going to have industry terms, free templates, Willie had said to us from Stratafin, we can add all Stratafin's templates on there as well. So we're going to get cracking with that. Two parts that really are close to my heart and excite me, and people have been asking us, Shirley's been asking us since TVDM Consultants started. Webinars are clashing, you know, ours is the same time as WIST, or Stratafin's webinar is now. So we have come up with a centralized event calendar, which will be part of our neighborhood, where people that have taken out packages will be able to advertise their event on our calendar. Not only will you be able to see it on the calendar, but you're going to be able to register directly from that calendar. So no more, oh, is it a Stratafin event? Is it a TVDM event? Is it a Meeting Pal event? You're just going to go there, register, get your links and things like that in one place. And also what's nice about that is you can see what we're talking about, you can see what other firms are talking about, and maybe today you join our webinar because you have a question that you want to ask. Next time, and then you watch the recording of the other webinar. So I'm really excited about that centralized event calendar. The other thing that's really close to my heart, or something that we have come up with, is a service provider directory. Looking for a painter, looking for a repairman, looking for a managing agent. We're going to have this yellow pages, for lack of a better word, on our neighborhood platform, so that you can just go there and see whatever details you're looking for. So we are so excited for this to launch. We are looking at 1 February as our launch date. Please don't hold me to it. You know how January goes sometimes. But yeah, we are looking forward to welcoming you to our neighborhood. And that's it from our side, Zelinda.
Fantastic. All right, so now we're going to deal with some Q&A. The whole team are going to be joining the Women in Sectional Title webinar at 11 o'clock. So we have got about 7 minutes to deal with some questions. Andre, you posted a question on the chat function. It's quite an interesting one, and one that we've been seeing very often. You've mentioned that you had a year end of December 2021 and no AGM was held in 2022 yet. Now, 2022 is very close to over. So if the notice hasn't gone out yet, I don't think it's going to happen. The budget was obviously not approved because you didn't have an annual general meeting. And the current levies that you're currently paying was last approved, obviously, at your last annual general meeting in 2021. And it has been extended and extended and extended. So your question is, can levies be increased at all with effect January 2023? So the reason that I didn't answer at the moment that it came on is that there's a couple of different interpretations here. So if you've said that the current levies are still in place, yes, that would be correct, because the current levies would continue to be of full force and effect until such time as the new levies were approved at the next annual general meeting. Bearing in mind that the trustees have the ability to raise a levy increase from the end of the financial year until the budget is next approved at the next AGM, up to 10%. Now, the question is, can the trustees then raise a further 10% increase on top of the 10% increase on the current levies? Or can that 10% that was raised be further extended into the new financial year? I feel more comfortable with saying if you've raised the 10%, that can stay until the next annual general meeting. But interestingly, I haven't thought about it before, so thank you for your question. I don't feel comfortable about the trustees raising a further 10% increase on top of that. Now, the danger of having the same levy is that, as we know, everything goes up. And the body corporate is going to run into a situation, firstly, where it's going to run out of money, and secondly, where it's going to start taking from Peter to pay Paul, and there might be a directive or a restriction against that. And, you know, when it comes to nice to haves, you know, that can wait for a little while, but when it comes to the have to haves, for example, municipal bills and all those fun things, if you're going to start taking from other budget items or running over your budget, that is not allowed. So it is a very tricky situation. And although members do have the ability to get enough support together to call a meeting, including an annual general meeting, there really isn't much point in owners running with that process if they don't have the information. So, you know, anybody can prepare a budget, but it's not going to be worth the paper that it's written on if you don't have the information to input, and only the trustees and the managing agent would have that. So it is definitely a concern. Yeah, so in summary, your question is, can the levies be increased at all with effect from January 2023? If the trustees have already used their 10%, the trustees will not be able to do that again. If they have not used their 10%, they should have, if it was necessary. Perhaps they can do it now, but it would be much better to rather hold an annual general meeting, bearing in mind that the trustees, by trustee resolution based on urgency, can hold a meeting on 7 days notice. So they can still have something done this year. You can even deal with certain items of business at the annual general meeting. Let's say, for example, just the approval of the budget, and then you can deal with the other things later on. Also noting that when the legislation changed, the requirement for audited financial statements actually fell away for an annual general meeting, because that was sometimes the reason that the meetings were being delayed. So you can have a special general meeting to deal with that afterwards. Another interesting question would be, let's say the trustees raised the levies by 5% last year. Can they cap it up to another 5% because they haven't reached their 10% max yet? I think it can be quite creative. But the trustees need to jump in and have that meeting ASAP there, most certainly. Ladies and gents, any other questions?
Thank you for that.
No problem, no problem.
Carl, can you just resend the sign up to our webinar, our newsletter link? There's a typo in that one. There's an extra R at the end, please.
I'm here, I'm always searching for people.
Shirley is always searching for people, quite right. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to raise them. We're going to all jump off now to join the Women in Sectional Title webinar, where Mike Addison will be speaking there with Marina. So from all of us at TVDM, we thank you so much for your support this year and the years before. We consider you to all be our friends in this industry. And if you ever need us, we're only a WhatsApp, an email, or a telephone call away. Please be safe over the holidays. Have some rest, even if you are working over the Christmas period. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And as us at TVDM always like to say, be blessed. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day, and we'll chat to you soon. Keep well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.